Okay, so if you just want the quick 5-minute version, here it is. You need to lift up the little rubber thing that's on top of your dash. Underneath that, you'll see the 2 screws. The arrows are pointing at them. Remove those 2 star screws. Once you do that, you can go ahead and pull out on the faceplate of the dash to remove the faceplate. Then you're going to want to go down to the bottom and pull out on the trim around the base of the dash. This comes off rather easily. It is only held on by a couple clips. Once you've gotten this far, you'll need to remove the screws that are holding the rest of the dash in place, the cup holders and such. And then you're on your way. If you'd like more detailed information, stay tuned for the rest of the video. Alright, so this is the 2010 Dodge. Now the problem I've been having is my defrost will not work. It always blows air out the vents. It's not switching to floor, it's not switching to defrost. So I thought I'd do a little internet research, try to figure out what the problem is. It seemed like it was going to be a pretty big task to get into it from the people I'd asked, so I decided, well, I would just see how big of a task this would be, and if it's something I needed to get professional help with or something I was willing to take care of myself. So with a pretty limited amount of tools here, you can see I got the Husky tool set here from the local Home Depot. I got that as a Christmas present a couple days ago from the company party, so I just left that in the truck. That's what I'm using. I don't have all my regular tools here today. I was thinking, I'll just take a look at it and see how difficult of a task this is. Now I'm going to show you, because I've already pulled this out, what I'll do is I'll put it back together and I'll show you how it goes back together. And from that point, you should be able to just take it apart in reverse. But the problem that what is actually causing the problem is right down in here. So if I can get this light in here, and you can see I've got these actuators, and there's a screw that holds each of them, one here and one here, and I've taken the screws out. So this is the mode 1 damper actuator, and you can see it's right there. And it just hooks on to the door right here. And the problem that it's creating is this damper won't switch. So normally it's up here, and then of course it'll open and go to defrost. And there you go. And so that's my problem, is that switch, or actuator rather, is not moving. And you may want to check and make sure that the gear itself isn't stripped out, or that going into here on the female end it's not stripped out, and that's not your problem, that in fact the motor is my problem, because the gears are still good, it's just not turning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start to put this back together. I've bought 2 new actuators. I stopped by the Dodge dealer, sold me 2 new actuators, of course made in China. I'm going to plug them in, make sure they work right here, and then I'm going to put them in the right position that they should be. Right now this is set, it's blowing on my defrost. I've also got the bottom, so this, from what I've read, is the mode 1, and this would be the mode 2 damper. So I'm going to change these actuators and we'll go from there. Alright, so in order to change this, I'm going to attempt to do this with one hand. I'm just going to push this button in and get the 2 wires out. Easy enough. I'll go ahead and take the other actuator and just plug that in. I'm just going to go ahead and plug the new actuator in. Clicks in. Now I'm going to turn the truck on. I'm going to open and close this to make sure it's in the right position to align with where my damper is. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mount this where it needs to be. Alright, so an interesting note, as I did power the vehicle's air conditioning system off, the actuators did return to an open position, meaning they were up. So I'm going to go ahead, this is the mode 2 one, I'm going to put the keys in, I'm going to turn it to the on position, and hopefully you should be able to, as I adjust it, see this thing spin here. So you can see that door is now, or that actuator is now turning, and it's closing that door so the air will not blow out on the floor, and it will indeed come out the defrost where I want it. Alright, so I just turned on my heat vent system and I turned it to defrost, which is the down position for this. The actuator went ahead and spun down. My damper is in the down position. Now I'm going to go ahead and replace the 2 screws that are holding the actuator on. And I'm going to do the same thing for the actuator that is just below this one right here. Now here's an interesting note. The Dodge dealer did tell me this says it's for a single zone defrost only, and both actuators in fact they gave me are for that, and they said their note does say that this is the actual correct actuator for both the mode 1 and the mode 2 doors. Alright, so I've tested it out, it all works. I'm going ahead and I'm just unplugging this so I can remove this console out of the way. It's going to make it a little easier to put this other stuff back in here. It should be super quick. The biggest thing, and I'm going to do this one-handed, is there's just this one. You need to push this little thing in and move the gray retainer back, and it'll actually eject it. And there you go. Now that you've got those out of the way, we can start putting the, get a wider shot, start putting this back together. Alright, I'll try to get this. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cup holder piece back in. I'm going to come down here. There's a little plastic nub that pokes out. I'm going to go ahead and slide the cup holder on to the plastic nub on both sides, and then I'm going to go ahead and hinge it up until it hits this other plastic nub and gets seated back in there. Once that's seated in there, there's going to be a screw that goes here and here. But before I do those, I'm going to go ahead and put these back in as well. These are the trim side pieces where your accessory slash cigarette lighter will go. I'll slip that on. That's going to go on the same way. And then there's just going to be there's very few bolts or screws that hold this on. So there'll be one that goes on each of these at the top. And then there'll be the screws in here, and there's some up here, and I'll show you each of those as I put them in. Alright, as I said, I got my handy Home Depot kit, so I don't have a lot of my normal tools. I'm going to go ahead, there's one down here at the bottom, just above the little teat that you slid it onto. I'm going to put a screw in there, get that started. And then we're going to go ahead and move up. There's one more at the top of this cigarette lighter, and then there's going to be one more just right inside the dash. I'm going to put all 6 of these screws back in. We're going to go ahead and clip the faceplate back on. It basically just clips through these little clips right here, and we're just going to pop that on. You can notice it's got these clips on the back, and they're just going to lock it in place. Okay, so I just went ahead, I went on the back here, I plugged all the cables and cords back on. It's pretty simple because they only go in one spot and one spot only. So this is how it looked before. I'm going to go ahead and just slide this behind the gear shifter and slide this into place. And as you can see, it's going to start clipping back in. I'm getting everything lined up, and it's starting to look as before anything happened. And I'll start just clipping this in. Okay, now that that's done easy peasy, I removed the rubber that was in the bottom of this little thing. There's 2 screws. They'll go back in there. And then we'll be on to the last step, which is just clipping the plastic that goes around the bottom here. Pretty similar to the top. There's just a piece of plastic that's going to go around the bottom here, and that's what conceals these 2 screws. So as far as the take apart procedure, I'd start here by removing these 2 screws and the rubber. Go ahead and you can start clipping all this off, but also note you're going to need to remove this and remove these screws before you can in fact remove the rest of the panel. So